Dear Theosophist friends, we are starting a joint research seminar with Russian and foreign scientists and Theosophists. We are happy to welcome all participants who joined the seminar and members of the research group.
Today we are working with Professor of Yeonbuk National University and Seoul National University, Mr. Unhang Hwang, South Korea, Mr. Sergey Roshchukkin, Doctor of Physical and Mathematical Sciences, Professor of the High School of Engineering and Physics of St. Petersburg Polytechnical University, named after Peter the Great, St. Petersburg, Russia, Mr. Sergey Kolganov, PhD in Philosophy, Department of Moscow Aviation Institute, Moscow, Russia, Mr. Arni Narendran, Theosophical Society of India, Blavatsky Lodge, Mumbai, India. Today we have a final meeting on the PROEM of the Secret Doctrine. We will sum up the results at the next seminar on December 26. We'll start discussing the first stanza, first sloka, first volume of the Secret Doctrine. Today, the PROEM is presented by Mr. Pandey, International Speaker of the Theosophical Society, National Lecturer of the Indian Section, President of the Uttar Pradesh Uttahkaranda Federation, Mr. Sergey Kolganov, PhD in Philosophy, Department of Moscow Aviation Institute, Moscow, Russia, Mr. Luke Michael Ironside, Theosophical Society of the Philippines in Morocco, and Mr. Vladimir Yare, Theosophical Society of Russia, Adamant Lodge.
Dear participants of the seminar, you can write all your questions and comments in the question and answer section. At the end of the workshop, based on comments and questions, a training material will be prepared with answers and comments from members of the research group. This video will be published on our Theosophy Fund's YouTube channel, website, and social networks. We ask you to work with us, ask questions, write comments and suggestions through the Zoom question-answer function. Based on your questions, a video has already been released on the results of the seminar on September 27, October 31st. The category was named Theosophical Quiz Video Forum, Question and Answer. These videos have already been viewed by more than 1,000 people. Our seminar is designed for those who are already familiar with and have studied the Secret Doctrine, as well as for anyone interested in Theosophy. The duration of the seminar is 2 hours. Please do not leave the broadcast. We will respect each other's work. Today we are working with translators Igor Turley, Ksenia Vasylenko, Maria Ponomareva, Olga Isayeva, who prepared material for translation. We thank them very much for their work. We express our recognition, respect and gratitude to all members of the research group and speakers. Over 150 participants have joined, including members of the Russian Theosophical societies, Theosophist schools and the Theosophical communities from Russian cities. Chelyabinsk, St. Petersburg, Moscow, Kemmerovo, Irkutsk, Omsk, Leningrad, Saratov, Krasnoyarsk, Tbilisi, Nizhny Novgorod, Voronezh, Yekaterinburg, Belgrade, Sochi, Karelia. Also, our colleagues from Ukraine, Moldova, Estonia, Belarus, Latvia, Uzbekistan, Indonesia, the United States, the United Kingdom, India, Brazil, Australia, Philippines, Greece, Germany, Italy, New Zealand, Spain, and other countries. We wish all participants fruitful work, so the online research seminar, The Secret Doctrine by Blavatsky, is open.
And we invite the first speaker.
Okay.
Mr. Pandey, International Speaker of the Theosophical Society, National Lecturer of Indian Section, President of the Uttar Pradesh Uttahkaranda Federation, India.
Okay, thank you very much, Sister Ignova and all brothers and sisters. First of all, I extend my very warm and hearty greetings to all of you, and also congratulations to the Advent Lodge, to the Theosophical Foundation, Moscow, for arranging this seminar. I extend the greetings from the Indian section also. Now, coming to the subject of today, the prologue, the one aspect of that, the absolute principle, I propose to dwell on it. The first of the three fundamental propositions which the secret doctrine establishes says an omnipresent, eternal, boundless, and immutable principle on which all speculation is impossible, since it transcends the power of human conception and could only be dwarfed by any human expression or similitude. It is beyond the range and reach of the thought. In words of Mandukya Upanishad, unthinkable, unspeakable. Hindus call it this principle, this absolute principle, as Parabrahman. This one absolute reality antecedes all manifested conditioned being. This finite and eternal cause is the rootless root of all that was, is, or ever shall be. Parabrahman being the supreme all, the ever invisible spirit and soul of nature, changeless and eternal, can have no attributes. Absoluteness very naturally precluding any idea of the finite or conditioned from being connected with it. Parabrahman, the one reality, the absolute, is the field of absolute consciousness and is essentially without any relation to manifested finite being. The conditioned existence, and of which conscious existence is a conditioned symbol. It is no thing, no being, but beingness, Sat, called in Sanskrit. It is beyond all thought and speculation. It can neither will nor create. Consciousness absolute, the state of consciousness which is beyond limitation and hence is beyond the cognizer and cognized. It is thus a state of unconsciousness. The secret doctrine speaks of it as the dark mystery of non-being, unconscious, yet absolute consciousness, unrealizable at the one self-existing reality. It is the one life, eternal, invisible, yet omnipresent, without beginning or end, yet periodical in its regular manifestation. Parabrahman is not a god, because it is not a god. It is that which is supreme. Paravara explains Mundaka Upanishad. It is supreme as cause, not supreme as effect. Parabrahman is simply as a secondless reality, the all-inclusive cosmos, or rather, the infinite cosmic space in the highest spiritual sense, of course. A master says that an impersonal, non-thinking, and non-intelligent principle is called by Advaitin a Parabrahman. There is only one permanent condition in the universe, which is the state of perfect unconsciousness, bare Chidakasha, the field of Confucius, this grand universe in reality, but a huge aggregation of various states of consciousness, and the ultimate state of unconsciousness is considered as Parabrahman by the Advaitin philosophers. In the Key to Theosophy, section 5, it is said, it, that means the absolute, does not think for the simple reason that it is absolute thought itself, nor does it exist for the same reason as it is absolute existence and beingness, not a being. Tisborough, who was a great theosophist, and at the time of Madame Blavatsky, in his talk on the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita says, Parabrahman is not ego, it is not non-ego, nor is it consciousness, or to use a phraseology adopted by our old philosophers, it is not jnana, knower, not jnanam, knowledge, not jnane, knowable. Of course, every entity in this cosmos must come under one of these three, that is, knower, knowledge, and knowable. But Parabrahman does not come under any of them. Nevertheless, it seems to be the one source of which knower, knowledge, and knowable are the manifestations of the modes of existence. All Vedantic writers of the old have formulated the principle that Parabrahman is the one essence of everything in the cosmos. Parabrahman as spirit matter, or matter spirit, or the substance principle, or the principal substance is immanent in each particle, in each every particle, and is that particle in manifested universe itself. A master says, our teaching respecting the one life is identical with that of Advaitin with regard to Parabrahman. And no true philosophically trained Advaitin will ever call himself an agnostic, for he knows that he is himself Parabrahman and identical in every respect with the universal life and soul. The macrocosm is the microcosm, and he knows that there is no God apart from himself, no creator, as no being. Having found gnosis, we cannot turn our backs on it and become agnostic. This is Master's letter 88 in chronological edition. It then he further says in another letter, Nirvana is a state of absolute rest and assimilation with Parabrahman. It is Parabrahman itself. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, the sage Yagnavalkya says that whole manifested universe, which was, is, and will be, is pervaded by Akasha, unmanifested Akasha, and that this Akasha is pervaded by that which is called Akshara. Akshara, Sanskrit word, means immutable in English. Further, that whole manifested universe is in order under its effect. This self is described as a neti, nor this, or not yet, not yet. It is imperceptible, undecaying, unattached. It never feels pain and never suffers injury. Another mantra of the same Upanishad describes the Brahman is full, this universe is full, the full proceeds from full, taking the full of the full, yet remains the full, whole. Now these were some of the descriptions which I just shared with you regarding absolute principle, Parabrahman, from the Secret Doctrine, Key to Theosophy, Upanishad, and the writings of the Tisborough. Now we see many other philosophy, it is named differently. Now various designations which appear in literature, here given the text that designate the nameless, this is called nameless absolute variously, like beingness, non-being, absolute being, Adi Buddha, the one absolute reality, the one secondless existence, Advaita, without a second, N or Ein Sof, is the only self-existent, then the even unknowable, ever unknowable, and incognizable Karna alone, the causeless cause of all cause, Akshara, great extreme of Confucius, the deity concealed by Pata, the unknown referred to in various ways in Rigvedic verse, such as not was, or later the Parabrahman. So these are many names for this principle, which itself is nameless. There can be 1,000 names, but none of the name represents the whole principle. Now, since this whole principle is abstract, so it can be only described by negative terms and also by symbols. Our sages have tried to explain by symbols. Now, many symbols have been used to represent this principle. The symbols used for describing Parabrahman are the Brahmanical golden egg, Hiranyagarbha, from which emerges Brahma, the Logos, the creative deity. Then another symbol is the circle with the central point of by Pythagoras. In the secret doctrine, the concealed unity, whether representing Parabrahman or the great extreme, or the deity concealed by Pada, the eternal light, or again the Jewish Anshof, is always found to be symbolized by a circle or the naught, absolute nothing and nothing, because it is infinite and all. While the God manifested by its work is referred to as the diameter of the circle. The circle indicates the bounding, surrounding quality of the all, the universal principle, which from any given point expands so as to embrace all things, while embodying the potentiality of every action in the cosmos. In symbology, the central point is the Jivatma, the seventh principle, and hence the Avalokiteshvara, one Sivan of the Buddhist manifestation, Logos, Vyas Logos, the germ point of manifested activity, while acting through that germ point outwardly is an active force, reacts from the circumstance inwardly as the supreme but the latent potency. In the key to Theosophy, it is described as a sphere without circumference in its symbolism, which has but one ever-acting attribute, embracing all other existing or thinking attitude. Now, when it comes to duality, for evolution, for manifestation, then this beingness is symbolized in the two aspects, absolute abstract space, representing bare subjectivity, and absolute abstract motion, representing unconditioned consciousness. This latter aspect of the one reality is also symbolized by the term, the great breath. Once we pass in from the absolute negation, duality supervenes. The contrast of the spirit or consciousness and matter, the subject and object, the spirit or consciousness and matter are, however, not independent reality, but these are two facets or aspects of the absolute, Parabrahman, which constitute the basis of conditioned being, whether subjective or objective. The great breath assumes the character of the pre-cosmic ideation, which is the origin of all individual consciousness, and supplies the guiding intelligence in the vast scheme of cosmos. Evolution, on the other hand, pre-cosmic root substance, Mula Prakriti, underlies all the objective planes of nature and is the substratum of the matter in various grades of differentiation. Esoteric doctrine says that while Mula Prakriti, the noumen, is the self-existing and without any origin, is in short parentless, Anupadaka, Prakriti, is phenomena, is periodical and no better than a phantasm of the former. So Mahat, the firstborn of the Jnana, gnosis, knowledge, wisdom, or the logos is the phantasm reflected from the absolute nirguna, Brahman, the one reality devoid of attributes and qualities, while with some Vedantin, Mahat is a manifestation of the Prakriti or matter. Three distinct representations of the universe in its three distinct aspects are impressed upon our thought by the esoteric philosophy: the pre-existing, evolved from the ever-existing, and phenomenal, the world of illusion, the reflection and shadow thereof. The one prevailing, most distinct idea found in all ancient teaching with reference to the cosmic evolution and the first creation of our globe with all its products, organic and inorganic, is that the whole cosmos has sprung from the divine thought. This thought impregnates matter, which is co-eternal with the one reality, and all that lives and breathes evolved from the emanation of the one immutable Parabrahman, Mool Prakriti, the eternal one root. The universe was evolved out of the ideal plan upheld through eternity in the unconsciousness of that Parabrahman. At the commencement of the great Manvantara, Parabrahman manifested as Mool Prakriti and then as Logos. This Logos is equivalent to the unconscious universal mind of the Western pantheist. It constituted the basis of the subject side of the manifested being and is the source of all manifestation of individual consciousness. Mula Prakriti, or primordial cosmic substance, is the foundation of the object side of the things, the basis of all objective evolution and cosmogenesis. Force then does not emerge with primordial substance from Parabrahman latency. It is the transformation into energy of the supraconscious thought of the Logos infused into the objectivation of the latter out of the potential latency in one reality. These are the spirit and nature which two form our illusive universe. The two inseparable remain in the universe of ideas as long as it lost, and then impinge, merge back into Parabrahman, the one ever changeless. In the key to Theosophy, it is said that we believe in no creation, but in the periodical and consecutive appearance of the universe from the subjective onto the objective plane of being at regular intervals of time, covering periods of immense duration. No one creates the universe. Science would call it the process of evolution. The Christian philosophers and the Orientalists call it emanation. We occultists and theosophists see it in the only universal and eternal reality, casting a periodical reflection of itself on the infinite spatial depths. This reflection of the objective material universe is a temporary illusion and nothing else. That alone, which is eternal, is the real, one absolute principle, the Parabrahma. Thank you. These are the short presentation about the Parabrahman, its various description, various symbolical representations, various designations, then how it functions as dual nature, spirit and matter in manifestation, and what is really the manifestation according to occult philosophy, which is just a reflection of the absolute principle. So thank you very much. Now the slide, the last one, there is no creation. The universal and eternal reality caused a periodical reflection. This I have already covered. So the presentation is complete.
And big thanks to you, dear friends. We've just, our colleagues joined here, Ritva Helena Lapi, Theosophical Society of Finland, Blavatsky Lodge, we are greeting you. Evgenia Petelietova, Theosophical Society of Russia, President of the Lodge Om Tara, we are greeting you. Mr. Sergey Franzuzov, PhD in Historical Sciences, Professor of St. Petersburg State University.
Mr. Pandey, thank you very much for your classic idea Parabrahman.
Thank you.
Surprisingly, the poem describes already the main aspects of Parabrahman, the direction in which one can explore one of the most difficult and misunderstood concepts of the secret doctrine. Thank you for your research and collection of your various sources describing Parabrahman. One of their
Thank you.
main tasks in researching and defining theosophical terms and in general studying the secret doctrine is to apply knowledge to the life of every day.
It is
Tell us
important to
how the understanding of Parabrahman can be reflected in everyday life, uh, be applicable and useful. It's not the question, it's just a suggestion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And we invite the next speaker, Sergey Kolganov, candidate of philosophy,
In-
Department of Moscow Aviation Institute, Moscow, Russia. Dear friends, I'm glad to see all of you. Theosophy and two images of the future. We'll start our topic about from the modern condition of science, not from the theosophy. I want to believe in a better future for Earth civilization, in the development of man, in the future improvement of his life. From the point of view of science, evolution happens by itself. Nature directs efforts at this, but it has the right of the strong. The most adapted to the natural environment species of animals and plants to survive. The same man who directs the evolution of recreating itself. Such power as in the 21st century people have not yet had. New social realities have emerged that allow us to change not only the existence of man, but also his very nature. Since science is currently studying objects of which the non-discontinuous part is the person himself, this is especially disturbing. The transition of the next stage of evolution is predicted with subsequent changes in the human body itself, in particular its neural network through the use of NBIC technologies, which creates the immediate threat.
Человек превратится в смешанное существо.
Which develop not only to human health but also to its very existence. This is immediate threat. With the development of new technologies, the human body receives more and more elements that are not peculiar to it as a biological species. In the near future, the composition of the human body may change significantly and include biological, mechanical, and electronic parts. Humanity will turn into mixed beings. We will be able to design ourselves more and more actively, showing our transformed bodies in the same variety that we see today in objects, clothes, cars, etc. Both Russian and foreign scientists analyze the development and special law of NBIC convergence, that is, the convergent development of nano, bio, info, cognitive, and social humanitarian technologies as related sciences. At the same time, there is a reinterpretation of social reality within which the actual social and material become indistinguishable. NBIC convergence follows the most acute discussions in assessing the prospects of a person, society, and civilization from the point of view of implementing the technological capabilities inherent in it. In the value aspect, the consequences that causes transformations in the system of relations between society and man on the one hand, and science and technology on the other, are important. The technological transformation of man as a species means the transition to a new type of evolutionary process, namely techno-bioevolution, which is of a particular interest and enthusiasm among supporters of evolutionary transhumanism. The process of technologization of a person are carried out during the implementation of projects aimed at that transformation. A person is technologized by processes of external and internal, including sensory organs. Nanotechnologies make it possible not only to design molecular machines and nanorobots that can functionally replace humans, but also to integrate them into the human body. Microchips embedded in the human body are supposed to replace organic functions and control the functioning of the body as a whole. Convergent technologies create prerequisites for changing human biology at a fundamental level. Work is underway to create artificial models of neurocortex fragments, and forecasts suggest the creation of X-cortex, the external cortex of the brain, in the form of a system of interface that simulates human thinking. At the same time, information technologies create a virtual world, generating new ways of symbolic human presence in society and culture. The reverse side of human technologization is the process of anthropomorphization of the artificial environment, the fragments of which acquire human properties: perception, memory, recognition of the subject, communication, digital identity. In addition, from the point of view of synergetics, the order parameter is nanotechnologies and nano-objects of different nature, atoms, genes, neurons, and bits, that become interchangeable. This means that convergence concerns not only science and technology, but also their objects. Overlapping these processes with the virtual world of the Internet ultimately leads to the formation of the all-encompassing hybrid reality. Currently, a grandiose project is being implemented, Neuralink. The goal of the project is to connect a computer to the human brain. The computer will be able to interact with memory, human thinking process, and will have access to any information databases. Work in this direction is being carried out by Elon Musk, and he has already developed the first prototypes elastic threads that will be used for information transmission, as well as a module that automatically integrates threads into the brain. With the help of an implanted microchip, a person will be able to expand their mental abilities. Mental anguish will remain in the past. Humanity will learn to manage their emotions, improve their ability to learn, and correct behavior. People who have lost their sight and hearing will be able to live a full life due to the impact of neural connections. For paralyzed people, sensor implants will allow them to move by controlling the external frame, the exoskeleton. A big disadvantage of such technologies is the possibility of unauthorized access to confidential information, to the consciousness of a huge number of people, the possible probability of individual control and mass management. It is worth considering whether the modern society of people is ready to use them for the benefit, not to the detriment of the development of human civilization. Modern science has been able to change the genome and genetics, and this is a direct path to the so-called expansion of man, his transition to post-human. The avalanche-like growth of scientific knowledge brings new social and civilizational risks to humanity. Nanotechnologies have appeared that can provide infinite replacement of atoms and cells of the human body, which ultimately leads to immortality. And what will happen to people if they are so modified? Can they become cyborgs, clones, or artificial intelligence? Will the new person have emotions, spiritual and moral qualities? Will he be able to develop spirituality? Or is it a question of the price to be paid for the practice of man-made intervention? In the field of biology, conclusions and possible errors that arise from the biological interpretation of a person are of great moral importance. A number of biologists consider innate such qualities and actions of a person as a tendency to violence, aggression, career, power, hostility, and war. Traditionally, it was believed that these qualities are social in nature, and a number of modern biologists insist on their genetic conditioning. Numerous moral problems arise at the intersection of biology and medicine. Such medical achievements as the ability to control the sex of the unborn child, replace affected organs or tissues, and the ability to influence the human psyche using neuro-linguistic programming have an ethical connotation. The problem of moral responsibility has recently become particularly accurate, in particular in connection with progress in the field of genetic engineering, since it affects the intimate mechanisms of life. Ethical issues in modern science have become particularly relevant in connection with the experiments conducted last year in Chinese laboratory by scientists from Spain to create the first hybrid creatures by combining human stem cells with monkey embryo and dissembling the formation of certain types of cells in the animal's body. Such experiments, as well as possible experience on human cloning, will certainly be condemned by representatives of world religions, because such a person will presumably be deprived of a soul. In this regard, I would like to quote the famous Chilean writer Darius Salama Somejer. Many believe that science will save humanity. I think that it is more likely to cause spiritual atony in a person or lead him to brink of destruction. Science itself is beyond morality, and it does not guarantee the correct use of the technology it develops. But this is the reality of today, and it will be possible to overcome the obstacles to our further development by passing the option of technological transformation of a human being into a cyborg. Image of the future spiritual aspects. It should be noted that the unity of all living things, which was manifested in the worldview of thinkers of the past, has now been replaced by the separation man is opposite to the cosmos. Nature becomes the object of human research. The subject-object relationship turns into a universal means of knowledge. However, the opposite trend, though not so obvious, has been maintained throughout the time. The trend towards integration of knowledge. The Theosophical tradition played an important role in this. It has always received strong support from Eastern teachings, which still retain their original integrity at the present time, especially from Buddhism, yoga, and Vedanta. The ancient Eastern philosophers understood the path of evolution of the human being as the incomprehensibly slow universal cosmic path of human improvement from the lowest planes of existence. As the founder of fruitful combination of Western and Eastern spiritual traditions, the founder of the Theosophical Society, Blavatsky, opened a new page in history. In her doctrine, there is a tendency to search for a global synthesis of gnosis directly through internal spiritual practice. Theosophy seeks to reconcile faith and knowledge based on the ideals of self-improvement. The general integrator of various spheres of spiritual activity is the universal truth, which, according to the basic Theosophical slogan, is higher than any religion. In her writings, Irina Blavatsky sought to draw the attention of the Western world to the teachings she received from the Eastern sages, and she saw her role only in recording and broadcasting his teachings. The basis of Theosophy is the theosophical field, and the perception of it later as a pure philosophical teaching is explained by Helena Blavatsky herself by the fact that mental yoga is the only opportunity to spread previously hidden knowledge and new methods from the improvement of man in the West primarily through mental improvement. Helena Blavatsky in the Theosophical doctrine made an attempt to master the phenomena of unscientific knowledge. Spiritual practice here appeared as a new way of mastering knowledge of a different quality, to which the existing scientific procedures and categories are not applicable. The doctrine of the fundamental unity of all things is a distinctive feature of the Theosophical system. No matter what you study in the secret doctrine, you must always keep in that mind. Everything is based on a single being. This existence has two aspects, positive and negative. The positive aspect is consciousness, and the negative aspect is substance. The subject of consciousness, the being, is nothing but the absolute in its first manifestation. In general, it can be argued that the personality in Theosophy is reinterpreted in a religious existential way. A person who obeys natural and social conditions is a faceless unit. He is completely subject to social norms. Philosophers were convinced that human history and the fate of man are unsolvable within the limits of history. They receive final resolution only in eternity. The individual satisfies his body need, but the higher components are silent in him. His deep essence is muted by life's interest and interests. But it is worth to be an appropriate aspiration, and he would overcome his primitive desires, all casual and superficial, and then he will turn into a person. His personality is full of harmonious integrity and creative power. If a person wants to become such an absolute being, then he can do it, and if he can, then he must. Representatives of theosophical systems rely in their theories precisely on the uniqueness of the human personality, on its uniqueness, and therefore it can seek its own paths to the highest, which are not similar to the paths recommended by well-known religious denominations. However, here there is a problem establishing a moral norm, an atheistic ideal, with the help of which self-formation would be possible. The true possibility of an adequate knowledge of the world lies in the Theosophy, as many of its scholars believe. Theosophy meets some very deep needs of modern man, who is deeply dissatisfied with official science, official philosophy, and official religion. Claims to meet these needs were inherent in most esoteric teachings, but they were most fully expressed in Theosophy. It is not for nothing that the great Russian philosopher Vladimir Solovyov believed that Theosophy would play an important role in the spiritual development of mankind. Theosophy was defined as a mystical knowledge of God, but it meant an impersonal cosmic creator, not a personified God of the particular religion. This implies the recognition of the priority of religious experience and philosophical research over existing scientific approaches to the study of the world and man. Philosophy is the inner knowledge of the world through man, while science is the external knowledge of the world outside of man, wrote Nikolai Berdiaev. Since the solution of meaning is hidden in man himself, according to the philosopher, one cannot go from man to the outside, otherwise one will never reach the meaning of things. This meaning is revealed not by the arbitrariness of the subject, but by the divine source that is hidden in it. Religious philosophers started to form the concept of a person in whom the mind operates in an indissoluble unity with the senses and will, and in whom there is no rationalistic dissection. In fact, they developed a new type of religiosity, recognizing the presence of the divine within man, the key of faith. As already mentioned, consider the idea of cosmically correct behavior of man as an indispensable condition for his well-being. The individual is a creative laboratory, as the only real point of earth in which and through which the divine spirit acts. The connection with God is a personal transforming principle. It transforms both life and man, making him a God-bearer. This disclosure of a huge human potential is still largely through the study and in the forms of the material world around us. I would like to hope that attention to the process taking place in the inner world of a person will increase dramatically in the near future. Disclosure of consciousness by special means and methods, awakening from sleep, corrects the universal law of evolution, accelerates the spiritual development of man. The person learns to control his body, feelings, desires, and the entire inner world, and the voice of silence informs a person that he has found his truth, the eternal essence of which the entire cosmos was created. The Theosophical Blavatsky initiated the process of integration of Western and Eastern religious and philosophical systems around the world, which lead to the real state of things, namely the emergence in the 20th century of a large number of neo-religions qualitatively different from the existing classical religious teachings. This is how synthetic systems emerge, some of which are characterized by high spiritual content, Sri Aurobindo's integral yoga, living aesthetics, etc. And section teachings were also born, returning their followers to dark pagan cults with the magical practice. Currently, Theosophy serves as a link between the various spiritual traditions of the West and the East, and continues to actively generate new ideas in this area. Based on its synthetic methodology, including scientific, it retains the influence in the conditions of the predominance of the science-centered paradigm. Thank you for your attention. And thank you for those who organized this seminar. Thank you very much.
Vitalovich, we are greatly thankful to you for such a beautiful combination of knowledge that you presented. So, dear colleagues, here we have two reports we have already heard. Those are two different talks by Mr. Pandey and Mr. Kolganov. All of them reflect the aspects that are discussed upon by Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, the secret doctrine. So we would like to know how the knowledge of Theosophy can help neutralize or harmonize the development of human evolution, such as connecting the computer to the brain, robotics, etc., with spiritual development. I have a following idea to discuss about later. You'll be able to present your opinion in case you have such an opinion. So the idea is the following. So this description of this complex problem can be reduced to one concept: the acceptance of psychic energy. After the secret doctrine, the knowledge of Agni Yoga was given to the world, which was brought by the Roerich family. As you know, this is the single source, Mahatma Maurya. It is Agni Yoga in 14 books that has given us a detailed description and direction of how to apply this great knowledge. It is the study of psychic energy that has a huge advantage and a great potential for balancing between the technological processes of evolution and spiritual ones. If we know the cause, the manifestation, the life of the psychic energy, we will not fall into error. Evolution itself encourages science to take seriously that what has already been issued more than 1 century ago. Everything's too serious and too simple at the same time. Sergey Vitalovich, thank you very much for your very interesting information and close attention to this big problem. Dear friends, we continue our seminar and I present the following speaker. It's Luke Michael Ironside, Director of Virtual Research Center in Adyar, Theosophical Society of the Philippines, currently in Morocco. Mr. Luke Michael Ironside, please start your presentation.
Good afternoon, brothers and sisters, fellow Theosophists. It's wonderful to be here for this continuation of the Theosophical Research Seminar into H.P. Blavatsky's The Secret Doctrine. Our topic for today is a very significant one. We are considering the proem of the Secret Doctrine. And I think it's important from the outset to state that the proem of the Secret Doctrine is not merely a prologue or an introduction. It is, in fact, much more than this. The proem of the Secret Doctrine, including the three fundamental propositions, is in fact the basis or foundation of theosophical study. It is only by arriving at a correct understanding of this topic, of this study, and of the three fundamental propositions that the student of Theosophy can construct a coherent and a correct understanding of the entire esoteric philosophy. And so I would like to open with a quote from B.P. Adyar in his studies in the Secret Doctrine. Mr. Adyar states that the study of the Secret Doctrine provides unprofitable unless the student sees at his own stage of evolution, in his own life, in the activity of his own complex nature, the unity which is basic, from which differentiation springs, and on which diversity manifests. Thus, unless a serious attempt is made by the student to see the activity of the three fundamentals in the function and the process of his own individual life, they must remain mysterious and confusing and fail to inspire him to better life or nobler labors. And so we can see from this introductory quote the true significance and importance of understanding these three fundamental propositions. They are not only the basis of esoteric philosophy, but they are also intrinsically practical in our own lives, in understanding ourselves. In the words of the Delphic Oriole, to know thyself. It is only by an understanding of these fundamental propositions that we can arrive at such a knowledge of the self. And Madame H.P. Blavatsky commences her momentous work, The Secret Doctrine, with these three elementary propositions. They are essentially a synopsis of the entire work, in that they contain the core principles, which the remainder of the work could be considered a detailed commentary upon. So again, rather than considering the proem as merely being an introduction or a prologue, it would be better to consider the remainder of the Secret Doctrine, the many chapters which follow on from the proem, as being a detailed commentary upon these essential ideas. As such, these propositions are the epitome of esoteric philosophy, being necessarily abstract and oftentimes only partially understood, and at others entirely misconstrued. As students of Theosophy, it is necessary to form a clear conception of these fundamental tenets in order to set a firm foundation for further theosophical study. We will now examine briefly each of these fundamental propositions in turn. The first is that of an omnipresent, eternal, boundless, and immutable principle, Para-Brahm, on which all speculation is impossible, since it transcends the power of human conception. Being necessarily beyond the reach of thought, this principle can only be spoken of by negation, such as by the Vedic method of neti neti, not this, neither that. in which the absolute is seen to transcend the dualities and the differentiations of existence, whilst yet being the root and the cause of all. It is from this that we originally emerged into being, and to this that through the cosmic process of seemingly infinite aeons, we will again ultimately return. From this boundless principle, Parabrahm, we derive our thoughts and consciousness, our ability to influence and create our reality. It is important for us because it is us, at the most fundamental level, being the root of everything we are. And so in this process of self-realization, of knowing thyself, we need to begin with the most fundamental principle which underlies the entirety of the cosmic process. It's by arriving at the realization of the non-difference and the identity of the self with the universal self, with the one life, with Parabrahman, that we can truly arrive at this awareness of our own natures. The second fundamental proposition declares the universe to be a playground of eternal and incessant periodicity, in which countless universes come into and fade from existence. These innumerable worlds, Madame Blavatsky calls the sparks of eternity, these existing in the cosmic scheme for a mere moment in the duration of the days and nights of Brahm. What a profound statement the second proposition is. When we consider our own world, this own globe that we inhabit, and how large it may seem to us, a mere individual upon the cosmic stage, and yet we then expand that awareness to an understanding, as science now has, of the solar system, this globe being merely one globe in a solar system of globes. And then when we extend that awareness of the solar system to the galaxy, of which the solar system is merely one of many, and then again we extend that awareness of one galaxy amidst an infinity of galaxies forming a universal whole. And yet from the study of Theosophy, we know even that is not where this picture ends. This universe is merely one of a multitude of universes, infinitely and forever coming in and out of existence, perhaps even at this very moment. Then we can truly comprehend the immensity of what the esoteric philosophy explores and provides us knowledge on. And we find in here, this second proposition, we find the idea of periodicity, of cyclicity. This law of periodicity is universal in its application. It applies equally to the microcosmic and the macrocosmic planes. In the terms of the Hermetic philosophy, as above, so below. As within, so without. It is through this principle of periodicity that the one life functions in the world of manifested form, and from which the rhythms of day and night, life and death, sleeping and waking, the universal ebbs and flows of life, pass through their recurrent cycles. This is the most apparent and obvious of the fundamental propositions, in that it is easily observable and can be recognized from a consideration of any aspect of life, from our daily routines to the changing wheel of the seasons. In its fundamental essence, the universe is then the cyclic manifestation of the boundless principle, Para-Brahman. So from this we can see how the first proposition relates to the second. The second is a natural consequence or an effect of the first. This principle of periodicity therefore extends to all levels of our existence and beyond. It is an essential aspect of the Maya, or illusion of things in the manifested world, constituting the temporality of manvantaric life. It is intrinsically related to the concept of duration, this being the root of time and action. In itself, duration is changeless, but is the cause of all change, both observed and unobserved. Because this proposition operates along orderly lines, in accordance with the universality of its application, it governs all occurrences of change, from the natural cycles of our individual lives to the rise and fall of empires and religious philosophies. Reincarnation is one result of this universal law. We know from the study of Theosophy that there is no true death in the fundamental sense of the word. Every such occurrence of death is merely the door to a new existence, a fresh beginning in which the garments of a former life are cast away in favor of some newer and better suited to the step along the journey of our pilgrimage. Life is itself such an unending process of new beginnings. Thirdly, the postulation that the universe is, in fact, an immense and total whole, a single organism in which the many varied parts are but as atoms of a greater body. This third fundamental proposition informs us of the unity of man and cosmos, of the non-difference between the universe and all that resides within it. It is this last proposition that brings us to an awareness of the grand scope of theosophical philosophy through the cosmic hierarchies that emerged during the ideation of the universe, from potential to actualized form. The universe, then, while being fundamentally one and singular, consists of gradations or stages of evolutionary beings, of a vast variety of form, through which the one life manifests for the purposes of aiding the development of the whole. Each of these myriad forms is therefore intrinsically interrelated, coexisting and co-working towards the same object and end. Like the second, the third proposition also provides a foundation for the process of reincarnation, through reference to the obligatory pilgrimage of every soul through the cycle of incarnation or necessity. Very interesting phrase this, isn't it? The cycle of incarnation or necessity. Incarnation and necessity here being used in a synonymous sense, being used in the sense of having the same meaning. It is not a choice to incarnate time and time again in this cosmic realm. It is rather a necessity. It is an intrinsic part of our nature, of our evolution, that we must return. For it is only through such a return that we can grow and develop and have a part to play in this process. This relates also to the concept of karma, in that progress through this pilgrimage is dependent upon our own self-induced and self-devised efforts, rather than on the whims of fate or chance. This too is interesting and practical when properly considered. Theosophy is not a passive philosophy. It is not a system in which we merely are acted upon by some outside or supreme force. Rather, in an understanding of theosophical philosophy, we are called upon to take action, to undergo a process of self-transformation. We are responsible for our own choices, for our own actions, and therefore for our own fate. There is no karma except the karma that we ourselves make. We discover in a reflection of this third principle that we are journeying together along this toilsome path of evolution. We may, along the way, encounter experiences or lessons that are personal, individual, and unique. And yet the journey itself is one shared by all, regardless of whether they be further along or further behind our own position on the path. We could use the analogy of a mountain that we are all together climbing. This mountain has a spiral path, and we are all at different places upon this path, some further along, some further behind. However, what is certain is that we will all eventually reach that same summit, that same final destination. By recognizing the truth of this third proposition on a personal level, we free ourselves from the mistaken notion of our lonely, separated, and temporal existence. We become, rather than the meek and helpless objects of cosmic change, instead the very architects and forces of such motion, participants in the evolutionary process who work together in unity to build a better world. We are each of us sparks of the central sun, eternal in our essence and infinite in our potential. As B.P. Adyar writes in his studies in The Secret Doctrine, without our own body, within our own bodies, in our own being, work the laws which the Secret Doctrine teaches in the three fundamental propositions. Thus, they are applicable, not only on the grand cosmic scale of the universe and the hierarchies above, but equally on the level of our personal lives. This is one of the greatest beauties of Theosophy, that it is applicable to every aspect of life. It is up to us as students of Theosophy to make that wisdom practical. That concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.
So, Ironside, we are grateful to you. Great, big thanks. When you talk about draw our thoughts from the principle of Parabrahman and the unconsciousness and our ability to create our own reality. This is, I would like to suggest to discuss about that there's such a nuance to be specified. To draw thoughts from the principle of Parabrahman is impossible because it is unattainable, incomprehensible for the limited human mind. Parabrahman is located on a certain plane, and only his reflection will have the ability to manifest through upati, or vehicles. The first vehicles, builders, are the hierarchy of Tian Chohans. This plane is below the plane of prototypes, which is the plane of Para Brahman. This is the plane of mind and creativity. And even from this plane, only initiates, geniuses, can briefly penetrate there and take ideas, only ideas. But ideas, these are not thoughts, even less so consciousness. I thought it was important to discuss about this. Please, colleagues, comment on this point of view. As for the research of B.P. Vadia, just for a reference, I would like to add that Vadia, he moved away from Theosophical Lodge, according to his words at that time. The Theosophical Lodge no longer held Blavatsky's thoughts, but this was not quite so. Vadia himself is a very serious researcher, of course. Throughout his life and research, maybe he moved away to magic, to ritual things, maybe to some other deviations from Theosophy. I thought that it's important to study the secret doctrine by ourselves, the original source. It's important to understand by ourselves to construct the system of knowledge. Maybe that this wouldn't be too much, but at the same time, this would be our own discovery, our own understanding. And it would be hard to deviate us from the true understanding, to hard to fall in error. This way, we would stick to the most important aspects or attributes or discoveries of the teaching that was firstly brought by Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, the secret doctrine. I think that's important to select sources, and original sources are most important ones, especially the teaching of Blavatsky and also Agni Yoga, which was a culmination of Mahatma's teachings. These are my thoughts, but of course we'll have time to dwell upon this later. And now I'm presenting you the following speaker, Vladimir Yary, Theosophical Society of Russia, Lodge Adamant. I welcome everyone. Traditionally, I would like to start, as it was stated before, from the practical application of theosophical knowledge in the life of everyday life. Helena Petrovna tells us with a thought from the pearls of the East. Oral capacities are important to charm the listeners. I'd like to remind everyone that when we talk about Para Brahman, or when we start to have an idea of that this is not this, not that, unconceivable, immenseless, the greatest principle, rootless, root of everything. Once we fix this for ourselves, then by the provoking aspect of this unconceivable greatest essence, his impulse of this eternal breath, it only enables us to understand or come to an understanding of the reality of truth, which is into aspects of this single one. And those three propositions are presented by Helena Petrovna in The Secret Doctrine. So this impulse, which is intrinsic for every person in his sparkle, enables man to obtain information, to be ready to obtain this information in accordance with the opening of the heart. The heart is his true nature. As long as this nature is not revealed by love, by that phahatic power which is inside man, has its representation in the form of psychic energy that is in a person's mind consciousness, and thoughts may appear, emerge, the pure one. In that case, the spiritual energy, pure energy, case we accept and reflect by our serene mind this reality, which is the idea itself, and when our psychic energy or thought corresponds to this idea, that is the divine thought, then we are consonant to our own psychic energy, is the purest writing of our thought, and we are consonant with the spatial energy, with this divine thought, and this way an imprint on our serene mind takes place, because this magnetic law, it functions that identical is attracted to identical. This is a law. And according to this very law, Helena Petrovna presents an idea for every day. She simply let us to focus our attention on, to concentrate our attention on in a single ray, and by our attention to direct it to the thought of the day, to the meaning of the day. And this is how we derive high tension of an impersonal thought, because we capture the meaning, the essence. And when this essence, when a person's desire is present, this meaning is somehow closed, and the tension of this ray is increased when we are altruistic. This is how we can imagine our hearts, because it contains in itself this altruistic essence, the immutable laws, both the cosmic law as well as the law of nature. And in this compressed form, Helena Petrovna in the proem, of course it's not a simple prologue because some introduction was before the proem started. In this proem, in a compressed form, there's a very important moment for a meditative comprehension of the provided information from the books of Dhyan, according to the Dhyan stances, so that we could enter into this sequence through this meaning. And the first thing which we encounter on the very first page is the white disk on a black background. And this moment is very unique. This is what we can cognize This white disk we are able to comprehend, and this abstract space, that abstract is what is stipulated by the circle, is simply infinity for us. This is a meditative state in which we have to enter. But where to enter? How to enter? Helena Petrovna supplies us with a thought, and then we focus our attention that is in this white disk of emptiness for our sensual, sentient mind. It is empty. As long as we ourselves become empty, that is, we enter in a state of not knowing, unknowing. This is the very first point in our sequence of recognizing spiritual, between the spiritual by our spiritual principle, and this principle, as God's glory, has in our does not have in us feeling sensations. Therefore, it doesn't have sensations, but it awakens the laws of nature in us, or the nature of the heart. And when the heart is opened to some extent, and the heart opens when the nature on this dot in a circle, it's on the second page, the circle was the dot. So this very dot is the aim. That means that our aim is to open our heart, to open our nature, so that we could accept the divine thought. And once we see, as I have described, by our own psychic energy, by our aspiration towards pure thoughts, to the essence of the thought itself, in this very tension happens the conception. The ray of our aspiration falls into the nature, into the womb of the mother of the world. And mother of the world creates, with the help of this Shakti force, the power of nature itself, its Akashic power. She creates and gives birth our own thought, because, and having this tension, we can open our heart, and the voice of silence this way tells us about the secret mystery. So this is what I see in this proem, this sequence in which we are submerged by Helena Petrovna. This is why in the beginning, first we recognize emptiness, then we concentrate in this emptiness, some direction or aim, and according to this aim, goal, we become replenished. We start to replenish this emptiness. We are able, with our fullness, to, through the accumulated vacuum in our mind, which from one side starts to accept and from the other side to gives back, through this cementing space, in this way changing the life, because man is able to conceive worlds. So this is why microcosm is similar to macrocosm. That's why Helena Petrovna calls us to, in the beginning, to accept macrocosm at first as ourselves. Macrocosm is ourselves. Because a man is, in fact, consciousness. And the dot in circle relates to Para-Brahman in Mula Prakriti's wheels, which is located on the fourth plane. And the white disk is located on the third plane, counting from above. Because Para-Brahman, as consciousness of absolute, it has own non-being on the third plane in the form of consciousness or breath, this eternal breath, not knowing, not recognizing itself. When we do not ourselves, it means unknowing. This state of paranirvana, and awareness, it's nirvana, fourth state. Para-Brahman in Mula Prakriti's wheel, it's the dot inside the circle. It's a germ in a world egg. And this periodicity, as a potentiality, and at the same time, noumenon, is in fact also time. That's why different calendars were introduced in every culture, in every civilization. The calendars themselves, they show the applicability of natural law and cosmic laws to life. And how do we construct such calendars? So in the poem, briefly, Helena Petrovna gives us 7 planes of being, of existence. That is single consciousness differentiated on 7 planes. The first plane is the single and comprehensible, immutable, eternal one. This has been already described a lot. It's Para-Brahman, but Para-Brahman as unconceivable, uncomprehendable, unconscious. On the second plane, this is the plane of gods. The plane of gods corresponds with the potential hierarchy of Tian Choanic nature. The third plane corresponds to the third stanza. That's the plane of the spirit outside of forms. Generally speaking, all the 3 planes above correspond to the plane of spirit outside of forms. That is, there is spirit, there is consciousness, but there is no form. So a sort of noumenon. On the fourth plane is a plane of prototypes, where there is Pra-Brahman covered by the wheels of Mula Prakriti. This is the single, united one, which is expressed by Father, Mother, or consciousness and metta, where there is symbolic depictions such as triangles, the spirit, and quadrangle, which reflects matter or substance, through which the spirit or consciousness of the single life is able to have an idea or representation, its own representation. And this consciousness represents the divine thought, which is in the center of this light, or the darkness of that is giving birth to the sun, the so-called germ. On a fifth plane, there's phahatic steps, which are expressed by seven-rayed star, which is infinite. This seven-ray stars can be drawn by a single ray. In fact, it's just one single ray, but it has a correlation. This Phahat has a correlation of sentient chahanic essences, beings, or a sevenfold consciousness of a single being, which is an idea of the divine thought. And at this very plane, there's a hierarchical, structurized consequence, the hierarchy of heavenly beings. On a sixth plane, this material and formative plane, it is stanza 6. Please draw your attention that I would like to relate a very important moment. In every stanza, there's first, second, third, fourth, and fifth slokas, and every sloka corresponds to other stanzas. So this sevenfold nature of the slokas is expressed through the same titles. So the first stanza is presented on all of the slokas of other stanzas, from 1 to 7. This way, the white disc is filled. It's filled with those cosmic laws, with those periods, with those cycles, which have an important meaning for a clear understanding of how this divine thought is implemented, and which stages precedes and what are the future stages. And so according to those laws, we will be able to see our past, current, present, and future in a single presentation, single view. This way we come outside of the chains of time. So the sixth stanza says about the following. This is a plane of material essences. It's the plane where a world of elements is created. So those primordial elements, which are endowed with Tian Chohanic nature. Tian Chohans. We have 5 Tian Chohans, 5 Tiani Buddhas, and 5 Taras, or feminine principles. So Jhanic Buddha is masculine and Tara is feminine. They are represented by the centers of force which control and govern those substantial forms connected with the elements, and as a proto-elements, the elements, they form the structure of space, which in its turn also is sevenfold. This is so the second 6 stanzas tells about the nature which determines the nature of mind, the sensitive nature of mind, sensational. It's important to have feelings, sensations of nature in order to independently elaborate, develop the grain of our spirit, which contains all the information. It was expressed by the germ of the world egg. This germ is expressed only in human nature of consciousness, in the nature of his mind, man's mind. And the seventh stanza is the physical plane. This is a manifested universe. Before that, we talked about unmanifested universe. And then starting from the 7th stage, the universe becomes manifested. And Helena Petrovna describes essentially those planes of existence as a reflection in man and in humankind as of the conception in our solar system of our planet Earth. So everything has analogies. And if you could imagine today, practically, virtually, we have the day of blue pig. This is the day of Theosophy. It happens that we coincide always with our seminars or congresses with this principle. This principle is within the nature of absolute mind. On the second plane, in a constellation of Sagittarius, the second plane is a diameter, a horizontal diameter in a circle. So in this very diameter, which symbolizes a mirror of our mind, or absolute space, in which reality has its reflection, reality. So Theosophos, and the symbol of a boar, it's a symbol of the Theosophical consciousness, and Theosophists only are able to reflect the reality, to live with reality, through reality. But still, those reality is illusion from a position of Parabrahm. So it only creates a shadow, casts a shadow, and that was done for the purpose of the evolution of human consciousness. So this is a unique day, which in a cross has a reverted direction, and also, so blue serpent symbolizes mind. At the same time, mind as a serpent propagates cyclically. So consciousness grows in cycles, and theosophical consciousness develops this way, but then it comes through meta. That's why consciousness and meta, when they pass each other, so if you imagine a boar and on the opposite a serpent, this is a vertical, phohatic or psychic energy, or a precise thought that has to be deployed cyclically, but passing through substance or matter. This thought comes through taiga, which provides tension for birth of something new. And opposite, there's a white ape, white monkey. It's beauty of the symbol. So striving for something beautiful. And this way we achieve a meaningful action on earth. So this way Theosophist lives reasonably, coordinating himself with its creative aspect, with synthetic combination of consciousness and mind by combining this dual essences. So this is where illusion lies in. And when we combine this duality, a light appears in our minds. So this very light is the clarity which is normally achieved in the process of meditation. So this is quite simple. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We are thankful to everybody who delivered so much about the proem. You have touched upon concepts which are given in a prologue, which prepare
on the
us
concepts
for the
that
stanzas
are
of
given in the prologue,
Dhyan.
which prepare us for the study of the
From
10th
your
canto.
permission,
With your permission, in the final scene
I
of
would like to
prologue, I
come
would
back to
like
the
to go
very
back to the very
beginning
There are
and to
some
touch
details that we may have
upon
paid a little less attention to
things
than to anything else.
which were not discussed in details. We have some nuances here. And Helena Petrovna talks about the white disk with a black background. We suppose that this black background, which is dashed, the things which are outside of the circle, this unconceived space, eternal space, it reveals this white disk. It still has no specific circumference inside. Only in a while, after some cycle passes, that will be possible. So the first reflection of the view of this absolute in this dark space, which was absolutely veiled, and then we put our eyes on this, and then you see this white disk. And please pay attention that there are two disks. Only then there's some circumference which reveals this symbol, relative symbol, which is the eternally unconceivable presence. This way we determined the presence or a reflection of absolute. So the white, so the surrounding plane is black, and at this very plane, the Manvantara starts in this very plane where divine source is dormant in Pralaya. What is the divine source? It's the world mind which corresponds to absolute wisdom. And as soon as we have this circle with, please note that there is now three. First is the black plane, then the disk itself as the second state, and then the circumference, which is the third. And Helena Petrovna is asked by those three. She says that those three are single one. In fact, they don't exist separately. In this very circle, we have a plan of the forthcoming cosmology. It is a single life. It is periodical in its regular manifestations. Pay attention what it means. Regular manifestation. Once we talk about regular manifestations, we believe that this is the way how the law is expressed in cycles. And life is periodical in this very law, which sets up certain rules, first cosmic, then nature, then human laws, then our societal laws. It can evolve right there at the current stage, which is described in the proem. The cosmos is a noumenon, and it has no relation to the manifestations of noumenal world. It also means that there is cosmos which is phenomenal. It's his reflection, his duality. How can we call this? It's the body of cosmos. So cosmos itself is noumenal. It has no relation to the phenomenal worldwide because it has no beginning, no end, and it will not have an end because its body as a cosmic organization during which each new manvantar is, well, its construction of this body will be considered as the first and the last one in its own kind, because in every new manvantar, a new cycle or cosmic organization at each plane, it will happen on a higher plane, and this is how evolution happens. At the beginning of this activity, this propagation happens according to this immutable law. It comes from outside to inside and from inside to outside, and I will describe the planes of being a bit later. Only then the dot in the circle appears. This dot, please note that this dot is the fourth state. It's a certain form now, right now. I would say that it's not even a form, it's a potentiality. When differentiation happens, then it appears. So it's the very dawn of differentiation. Dawn of differentiation. So if the circle is a walled egg, then this dot is the germ. Then it evolves into a universe, an infinite and periodical cosmos. Therefore, this germ is either active or periodic, and periodic. Those are planes of being which always draw. Those are a system which we can fill in by the understanding that was revealed in the proem. Helena Petrovna writes, the sevenfold closed the eternal mother and father, mother-father. What is this sevenfold wheeled sevenfold clothes. Now we understand that it's about father and mother from a non-differentiated essence down to its differentiated surface. It consists of 7 layers, which are the wheels of Mula Prakriti. Here, the wheels of Mula Prakriti. Why do we pay such big attention in the Secret Doctrine, the poem, to those wheels, especially in the consecutive stanzas where those wheels are unveiled? There is an idea that the goal of those wheels, or Mula Prakriti, is to conserve this, to save this germ or this light, to safeguard it until the cycle of the beginning of definition, until the cycle of manifestation starts. Similarly, identically, water in a woman's womb preserve the embryo throughout 9 months. Each action determined in nominal aspects can also be applied to man. Step by step we will discuss about this as well. So this is how space and eternity emerge, where eternity is a category of time. How can we understand that eternity is a category of time? Helena Petrovna is asking what exists all the time, what existed before and will exist. Are the gods going to exist? And this space always exists because it's anupadaka, without parents. What is that which eternally comes and goes? And this is the great breath. It's the answer of Helena Petrovna. Comes out from this space and comes back again inside. Now we can draw that breath which comes from outside to inside, a symbol of infinity. See how this 8 is inserted into all the planes. Plato himself, who was a disciple of Socrates and was teacher of Aristotle, he called planets gods. Later, he also produced another term, the breath of God. We already discussed about it. Planets are connected with the cosmic elements. There are 7 cosmic elements. 5 of them are known, 2 are not. They will appear only in the 6 or 7 rays, just as hints in the circle, and will be quite known in the 6th and the 7th circle. All the 7 elements, which are represented further on a plane, formative and a material plane, those are just conditional elements or aspects of the single element. The single element is not ether, it's not even akasha. The single element is their source, which is much higher. So now the 5th element, ether, is semi-material now. It will be visible in the air by the end of the 4th cycle. Helena Petrovna says that it will be visible to dominate the others in the continuation of the entire 5th circle. And when we talk about these 3 fundamental principles, without application of identity, they remain quite abstract. So in the chat we had a question: how do you apply those prepositions? Where is this identity? And there was a discovery I already talked about. I will remind it once again, because it's the last seminar on that point. As soon as we apply a corresponding method application towards the proposition, we will see how this law really acts in everyday life. What does it mean? That absolute space or an abstract space, eternal unconditional principle and the being emanating from it become the mother giving birth. Absolute movement, which is also one of the three formless planes of being, eventually become first duration and then time. And this periodicity appears as a breath, and the breath represents identity, it becomes life. So it's quite instant. Then when we live, we breathe, and while we die, there is no breath anymore. And only then the identity of all souls with the Supreme Soul emerges. The union of the three is the burst of force, the force of movement or manifestation. As soon as these three merge into a single state, this state is ready to manifest. And then we come to one more concept, which Helena Petrovna talks about in the proem. Those are logi. Of course, we'll talk about logi in many stances, but this is exactly in the proem where Helena Petrovna determines three major logos. Geometrically, we'll see how we can describe those logi. So the symbol of the circle, this is the first logos, the unmanifested logos. The first ray reaching the center or the germ is the spirit matter, the universal spirit, or the second logos. How does the third one appears? It appears when the single becomes two. Now we see that a geometrical projection of the third logos. It's a cosmic thought basis, Mahat, or mind. Three radii in a circle. First, second, is third logos. There are two concepts, Brahma and Vishnu. Translated from Sanskrit, Brahma means growing or spreading. Vishnu, it's to penetrate, to enter into the essence of nature. So there is an infinite space in which gods, rishis, Manu, and all that exists are only forces in this universe. In this light, to grow and to penetrate in the evolution of man is the action of the psychic energy, which is the primary energy, primordial energy. Therefore, the acceptance, knowledge, and trust to psychic energy, phonetic power, creative energy can do wonders with a person. Like a person can suddenly recover from a long illness, even an incurable one. There are many such cases. When the blind became sighted, those who could not walk started walking, and so on. A person can become different, change his consciousness, and change the world.
Friends, thank you all
once again
for the informative research
such an
analysis
informative
of the
research
prologue of the Secret
seminar
Doctrine.
about the
We
proem of the
hope
Secret
that such
Doctrine.
a joint collaboration
As the
in the group
members of the
shows
research
clearly
group
how
express
valuable
their
live
opinions,
joint creativity is. Each of
speak
us paid
about
attention
the
to some
material
facet, and
that
we
has
all
already been
talked
expressed
about the
here. If
prologue.
you have Mr. Uttahkaranda, please tell us.
Thank you very much. Your good teaching. We are supposed to study or talking about the proem, prologue introduction today. but you expand everything you know. It was very helpful to me. Thank you. In introduction, there are two parts. First part is about cosmology. It's about the scientific evolution of the nature, and second part is the God's role in the universe. So second part is very interesting to me, and it says about Jehovah, the name of God. You know, the name of God is Jehovah. It tells in the Secret Doctrine in this book tells about Jehovah and how the Buddhists believe in. It tells everything. It contains everything. I mean, the prologue, introduction, or the proem in Russian, proem, has everything. If we read the proem, we know everything about the secret doctrine as a primary level. So I recommend everyone repeatedly read about the proem as much as possible. Thank you very much. That's all I'm talking about. Thank you very much.
Yes, every report, every speaker throughout these 3 seminars talked about similar things, that in the proem it is the fundament of the whole secret doctrine of all the 3 volumes. This is truly so. Very fundamental work, masterpiece, and we could easily speak about every concept for a long period of time, but let us now let every speaker be able to dwell upon the poem by himself. Is there anyone else who could? Can Mr. Ashupkin please tell us a few words? There's an analogy came to my mind about the primary white disk on the black background, that the white disk is conceivable and the rest is unconceivable. There is an analogy, striking analogy, in the works of Carlos Castaneda, where a man is a light glowing cocoon, but we know that the world itself consists of light emanations. So the human cocoon has a number of bands, luminous bands, and there is a statement in those works that only the bands are inside our cocoon is something which can be conceivable in principle. Those are the worlds we can cognize by being inside this cocoon, in this subtle structure. Everything else we cannot cognize in principle. I think that also suits this idea of the white disk on the black background. So in the current stage of our development, our subtle layers, they control our understanding of the world, they somehow limit our understanding, but in the course of evolution we'll probably be able to cognize more and more. That's what I would like to add. Thank you so much. Mr. Arni Narendran.
The basic concept in the proem which we have been examining, I think I've never seen this kind of a fascinating journey, because most of us just brush through the proem and rush through it. But this has been a very, very detailed kind of study, multifaceted, different dimensions, and great deal of, I would say, occult dig down into the entire concept of the proems, which has been quite revealing to us. In fact, I myself have been starting the secret doctrine. Of course, I haven't come to the proem as such. I'm still in the introduction stage, and we have stopped it right now because we didn't want to do it on Zoom. So this is going to give me a wonderful insight of how much of dharana. Dharana means contemplation. We see this this cannot be understood just by reading it. You require dharana. Dharana is a Sanskrit word or Buddhist word for contemplating on it. And it was out of contemplation that we can understand all this. Thank you so much to the Adamant Lodge for doing my job so easily and handing over this in a platter. And this is excellent. I would actually say this is excellent. And also, you have touched upon, see, there is one big confusion about the Parabrahman and the four hat. The four hat, which the Theosophist is the word which the Theosophists use, and the Parabrahman, which comes from the Upanishads, the Sanskrit terminology. Now the question is, Blavatsky had taken her sources from different wisdom schools. She had taken it from the Kabbalah. She had taken it from the Buddhist texts of Kalachakra, and she has taken it from the Upanishads predominantly. And there was some issues with Subbarao, who actually was telling that Blavatsky had not gone in detail. But maybe when Subbarao has come to this seminar, he would have understood that the Russian people have done so much of detail into the poems that he wouldn't have objected to that being released, because he was worried all this knowledge has to be given wholesome. All this knowledge has to be given incomplete. And all this knowledge has to be given from depth. And all this knowledge is to be given from the beyond mental consciousness, mental conception and perception, which he was thinking that the book would fail. That was the reason Subbarao was trying to withdraw from getting it published, if you know the history of the Secret Doctrine. But had Subbarao been here today and understood that so much of research has gone into it, excellent. Hands off to you. Thanks to Adamant Lodge. And you need to publish this as a separate paper and spread it along all over the world. Thank you so much for this fantastic work.
Большое спасибо, господин Нарендран.
Since Mr. Narendran, you know, every reporters here who throughout the 3 months, at every seminar depicted some facet of the poem through own understanding. That was very essential and important. That's why we believe that such a live communication, co-creation, when we each of us pay attention to some facet, but we talked all of us talked about the poem, and this manifestation of cooperation is very important for a joint thought making. When Mr. Pandey talked about Parabrahman, we changed our mind about the Parabrahman. Then Sergey Kolganov talked about such an issue, and then you start to analyze, but how this happens in reality. And then we have another image. Then Mr. Ironside delivered about his research on the three fundamental proposition, and you could lively imagine what it is like. This is very important. And then Vladimir Yare, who always compares everything to Kalachakra system, to Nidanas, to geometry. Then this becomes alive. Your understanding becomes alive. Dear valuable speakers, all of you who presented your ideas about the poem, I see a hand raised by Sergey Kolganov, please. Thank you on behalf of everybody for your profound explanation of the Secret Doctrine. Vladimir Yare, Evgenia Shaburnikova, your explanation is invaluable. I also would like to thank you for the hint on the psychic energy from the side of Evgenia Shaburnikova. It also relates to my own topic. I know how it's difficult to form something which is formless by its nature, and to provide some image to something which is imageless. But of course, besides striving for truth, we also have to to keep our direction of our aspiration constant, so that it could be so that our energy could be directed by prana or by chi energy, as the Chinese say. And thanks to this seminar, our energies come back, reverts constantly to the most important task that we have to resolve. I believe that our joint work and also our individual work is a sort of work with a so multidimensional figure in space, and every facet, every color. But in the end, eventually we have to bring this figure to a state when all the borders, all so that this figure could be shining with the perfection. Sergey Vitalyevich, great thanks to you. The most important is that why Helena Petrovna dedicated the Secret Doctrine to the true Theosophists, knowing that these are Theosophists who have to finally decipher this single symbolical language. It's really hard indeed to express images about imageless geometry, and the concealed symbols represent a very insightful material for Theosophists. And this is the direction that was indicated by Helena Petrovna. We have to stick to it. That's why I emphasize that we have to study original sources. We have to become ourselves researchers of this masterpiece, but we have to be directed by this very material, about this multidimensional figure. Kalachakra symbolizes this very figure which we could meditate upon. But we have here dot, line, circle, all those are the symbols we could use during our meditation. Those symbols reveal themselves and reveal the essence while meditating. Symbols of reality. Thank you so much. Surprisingly, that Helena Petrovna knew about Kalachakra, and she also described it, but you know about this. Thank you so much. And follow, by researching her masterpiece, we promote the name of Helena Petrovna. Next seminar will happen on 26 December at 15 o'clock
The
Moscow
next
time.
workshop
And
will
our
be held
distinguished
on
members of the
December
research group will present material on the first stanza,
26
first
at
shloka
15
of the
o'clock
first
Moscow
volume of the
time.
Secret
Our
Doctrine.
distinguished members of
We
the
are
research
thankful
group
to everyone who helped to
will
conduct this
present
seminar, the
material on the
speakers, the
first stanza,
interpreters,
the first shloka of
the
the first
research
volume of the Secret
group,
Doctrine.
all the other participants, all the listeners who asked their questions, all your comments, all your questions will be handled, and the next issue of Theosophical quiz will present answers related to this conclusive meeting on the proem. So soon it will appear on our YouTube channel as well as on our website. Thank you everybody for your important work which you have been doing for Theosophy in the world. A great thanks to our researchers from St. Petersburg, Sergey Alexeyevich Franzuzov. Thank you for joining us and helping us to create this thought image. Thanks to Mr. Ashuk and Mr. Kolganov, you are representatives of science that help to connect science and the secret doctrine. That's what was dreamt about by Helena Blavatsky, by Helena Roerich, and now together we are making this bridge between science and the secret doctrine. Please send your reviews to us. You will soon see the contact details. See you soon on December 26th. Light and love to everybody.